our guest on the show, he's just come on Zoom. Well, not long ago, a few minutes ago. The artist taxi driver is back on this show. On the call. How you doing, Mark?
How are we doing, Crispin?
Yeah, I'm good. Look, we're talking about the protests, and they're trying to stop all the protests. Now, it was pointed out to me that you'd done a protest quite a considerable number of years ago. You don't look any older, by the way. I'll just play the clip of your protest that you did to show up the protest, because I think it's amazing what you were doing there. So this is a clip from, it says 2005.
I'm an artist. I'm not like a political activist or anything like that.
Can I see your T-shirt? What are you
Yeah, it says this is not a protest.
Not a protest. Okay, and what are you going to do today?
Well, I was going to walk backwards, which like most people think, oh, that's not really a lot. But if you walk backwards, I think it is. Like people get really like, why are you walking backwards?
Right.
It's sort of like almost like going against things. Like everyone walks forwards.
Right.
But I mean, it's like most of my performances, or if you've ever been to any of my performances, like most performance art is crap, do you know what I mean? Witnessed live, but there's quite a good story to go with it.
Yeah.
But I hope the story today isn't that I get arrested. My mum will freak out if I get arrested.
Right.
So the first thing I want to do is just make it totally clear that I'm not actually protesting.
Yeah.
The protest. I know that.
This is not a protest.
I've spoken to him.
Yeah. I think it's an artwork.
Well, you're not a static protest, and you're claiming not to be a protest, and you haven't made any protest to me. All I can say is very cold and tell you.
Freezing,
I
isn't
put
it?
your coat on.
Yeah.
Okay?
Alright then.
But if you wish to walk backwards, as long as you're feeling safe doing it, I really not got a problem.
You're going to carry on?
I think sort of like, yeah, I might go home.
Okay. You've had enough.
I've challenged the law.
Yeah.
I fought the law.
And the law didn't win?
No. Rennie Maigret done this really famous painting and it said, this is not a pipe.
Yeah.
But it was actually a pipe.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's
Right.
quite ironic because I was actually protesting.
Yeah.
But they fell for it. They fell for it like the fools that they are.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? They thought, oh, he's not protesting. Well, I am.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Now it's over.
Yeah.
I'm back on camera. I was really protesting.
Okay.
But I don't know. I mean, it's true because if I can walk backwards with a T-shirt on that says this is not a protest,
Yeah.
and some woman can't read out
the names
some names,
Yeah.
that is really inconsistent.
Right, that's a really clever way of undermining the legislation and what was going on. I mean, so this is that what I'm sort of opened my eyes to on that is that this has been going on for years and years and years. This sort of stopping protest. What's your take on what's going on now? Is it you just think that's pretty much the same as before?
Well, that is exactly 20 years ago, isn't it? 2005, and that was legislation, surprise, surprise, brought in by the Labour Party, and it was Tony Blair. And what was happening around Westminster at the time was in Parliament Square, you had Brian Hoare, who was protesting against the Iraq War, and everyone was getting a bit unsettled because he had set up camp. Some people would remember Brian Hoare. He'd set up camp, but what happened? Quite like what happened with Occupy, loads of other people came and pitched their tents up next to Brian, and it became like this big kind of encampment. So they were always trying to bring in laws, Tony Blair was, to try and stop protests. I mean, 1 million people died in Iraq. It's something similar that's happening in Gaza, like the murder of like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. and they didn't want their authority, their sort of like to be questioned. So Tony Blair and his Alistair Campbell and whoever else, they said no more protesting. There was a woman who turned up and she read out the names of dead, murdered Iraqi people that had been murdered by the sort of like coalition, America and Britain, going into Iraq. And she started reading out the names, and she was arrested the week before I did that protest. So it was like, you know, it was a targeted thing. They tried to get rid of Brian Hoare for years. I did a piece down there where I said I was going to self-immolate. So I turned up with a petrol can in the middle of Parliament Square, and loads of press were there. Brian Hoare was there, and he had, like, I remember there was an Australian woman, Margaret, or I can't remember her name, I think it's Margaret, and she was like his sort of main co-conspirator down there, like in the protests, and they were shouting, he's from the Labour Party, he's from the Labour Party, because I said I was going to like set myself on fire, and I've got this petrol can, which had come out of my car, and the police took me, and they took the can, they smelt it, and it was like smelt with petrol. And he's saying, what are you doing, you idiot? You can't turn up here with a petrol can. And I said, I'm going to do a protest. I'm going to self-immolate. And all the press were writing the story up that next Tuesday at 6 p.m, artist Mark McGowan is going to like do a protest against the war in Iraq by setting himself on fire. And they were saying, have you done this before? And I said, yeah, I've been training with, I've been watching some videos of some film movies where they set themselves on fire. You can have padded stuff, and I've got a friend with an extremely long wick. Anyway, so the next week, so it was a performance that was for Chelsea Space, which was down the road in Chelsea College of Art in a gallery, curated by Andy Hunt. So I turn up the following Tuesday, there's like 500 people. You've got the camp there, which already meant there's a lot of people. But about 500 people, there was this massive crowd had come to see me set myself on fire. And there was a line of police wagons. There was like 8 police minibuses. And the police were walking around with like fire extinguishers. Anyway, I had a call from a friend of mine who said, Chunky, fucking hell, mate. You know, I've got a friend who works at Charing Cross Police Station, and your name's on the board, and they've got a 72-hour section order out. If you turn up on Parliament Square, they're going to grab you, and they're going to keep you for like 72 hours. So I just went down there and just filmed like all the crowd. But it was that level of expectancy that lots of people had come to see me sort of like self-immolate. I was being cheeky and fucking around with like the system and the law, but also exposing it for the sham that it was. Do you know what I mean? They didn't really, you know, they're not really concerned about, they're only concerned about themselves. They didn't want people. So Brian Hoare had lots of really visual, you know, dead babies, big black and white photographs strapped around Parliament Square. And you've got like, you know, visitors and tourists from around the world, and they come to see Big Ben and take photos, and they've got this Brian Hoare. I was very inspired by this guy. He was such a beautiful, amazing man, you know, what he did and everything. And yeah, it's something like the protest outside South Africa House for years for Nelson Mandela as well. You know, these static camps, which they always try and disrupt. That's why they done that thing with Occupy. You know, if you start setting up encampments, you know, in the middle of the city, you know, with bookshops, with libraries, with food, you know, that's why they wanted to smash up Occupy. And I've been out to the refugee camps out in Calais and over in France. And I've been to like a Kurdish camp, Afghan camp, an Eritrean camp, and all of those camps, you get like people from, you know, Care for Calais. So they go and they start bringing in food, you know, like support for people. And they just come and smash them up because they don't want it. Who's that group? You know, Win Stanley, the Outsiders, the Diggers. Do you know about the history of that? So they took some land. It was common land. like 16th, 17th century, and they went up there. Well, the Roundheads were there, and they're like the chief sheriff or the guy with the castle or the stately home, like fucking. He was like, "Who's all those people on the hill?" And he sent one of the Roundhead soldiers to go up there. And they were like, "No, you know, we just don't want to pay like taxes and that. We think like we just want to live together. We're tired of like you bossing us all around. So we got all our own chickens and sheep and cattle. We're gonna grow some veg and that." So there's Roundheads go back down and say like, yeah, they've set up an alternative way of living that they said to us. And the Roundheads were like, "No fucking way. Get back up there, wreck that fucking camp. There's no one living outside of the system around here." And that's pretty much how it is now. So if you protest against the system, if you're like going out and they're saying like no more protests against Gaza, what you're saying is like, I'm living in a country that is complicit in genocide, that is murdering people every single day, that is built like on our building drones and sending drones out, sending aeroplanes to take aerial footage and bombing it. You know, nothing left whatsoever. They said this week, oh, yeah, they can go back to their homes in North Gaza. There's nothing left. Donald Trump's on the fucking thing. He's going, that looks like really nice real estate. It's got beaches and that. Yeah, they can't go back there. You know, this is like, that's why they don't want people protesting, because they don't want people to know. Because if you go out physically on the street, they don't mind people on the internet because you're isolated and alone. But if you go out physically on the street, that's what upset. They don't like that visual thing. You know, they don't like people coming together. They don't like, that's what they did with squatting as well. Do you know that? So that whole thing about like alternative living, they put it again. They made it a criminal offence to squat an abandoned building. Criminal offence to squat. Like after COVID, there's buildings everywhere. No one's fucking in them, but people can't go and squat them. Why? Because people start making art. People start getting educated. People start setting up food places for people to eat. They don't want that. They want you fucking like down fucking Co-op or Lidl's. Do you know what I mean? They want you anywhere, but like in the safety of a warm, loving community that wanted to live in a different way to like fucking how this shit country's run.
Right, okay, right. The swearing's gone right up a notch there. So I'm just going to I've got to move on. But look, thank you so much for coming on, Mark. And we need to talk more about how we can. I mean, if you could get that much attention on your own, if everyone was like you, they'd never be able to cope, would they? Because if you had like 500 marks, the police would just have a breakdown.
You need 100,000 chunky marks.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've got to get you as a sort of here's how you do it sort of guide. Yeah.
Mate, like it's like I've hung my boots up. Like I haven't been out for ages. I need to get out. I've been hanging around the Bethlehem Hospital. I wasn't well for a couple of years, and ended up in the Bromley Drug and Alcohol Unit again. And I've just been sort of like getting better. So I've been like making art at the mental hospital. I've been there for like the last like 18 months just making art. Yesterday I made a shield, a really big shield, a shield of light. And I got like a scepter, and I made like a head protective headwear. I should get out in that. I should go around fucking London in that.
Yeah. Well, look, we'll see you at the next one, whatever it is. I'll get a shield as well. So we'll meet up and shield out. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember when they used to do those blocks and they had like really big books? Do you remember that? Like when they were doing the protests?
No, I don't remember that.
They made massive books. They were almost like out of like mattresses, bed mattresses, but they painted them like they were books, and they would just go and like shove the police with them.
Oh, right. Well, I'm not condoning that behaviour, just in case any police are watching.